Before we begin, since this is a BBC-owned property, I feel the need to point out that the news arm of the BBC has a continuing issue with transphobic leanings in its news coverage. You can find in a pinned comment below various videos from both myself and other YouTubers covering this issue. And while I understand that the Doctor Who creative team is not responsible for this, I will continue to point this out for as long as it remains a consistent issue. Thank you. Oh crap, this is plastic. Continuing on with Take 2 Doctor Who reviews, time to talk about Praxeus. This is one that I remembered bits of, and I remember my general opinion being, it's revisiting some of the, at least, themes of Orphan 55 and doing them better, but not remembering a heck of a lot more beyond that. That base level basically holds true. I can even point to some of the specific ways in which the environmental messaging was integrated into the story that just shows just how badly Orphan 55 did it. But as far as the story unto itself, it didn't leave that much of an impression. But there is some good stuff here. It's sort of bits and pieces, and it's sprinkled across a... okay. Yeah. It's, kind of episode. But there are little glimpses, little flashes of like, oh, in it. And I think in some ways it actually kind of benefits from being as close to Orphan 55 as it is, because it makes you go, oh, they didn't completely forget how to do messaging. Oh, thank goodness. But this is the one that actually, the way it starts is quite well done. And I kind of wish that this happened in Doctor Who a little more often. But it kind of starts not quite in media res. It's not quite jumping in after the story's already started. It's just starting us with the perspectives and getting us to know the normal people. So we start out with these travel vloggers and this ex-cop, and we sort of get established the astronaut and these things. And then the companions and the Doctor show up across these people's stories. So like one of the travel vloggers disappears, the other one runs into Ryan, who's like, don't touch the birds, there's something weird going on. The cop gets an indication that his astronaut husband is in Hong Kong. He goes to Hong Kong, and there's Graham and Yaz going, hold on, what are you doing here? And the Doctor shows up in Madagascar with these research scientists. I kind of like the way they're integrated, and it spares us the normal start of, well, Doc, where are we going? I don't even know what that accent was, but you know, them just like, oh, what are we going to do this time? It's like, oh, well, we'll go here. It'll be fun. And then something goes wrong. There's something, I don't know. It just feels like it gets started sooner just by skipping that and having them already investigating it. How did the Doctor and the companions find out that like there was something weird going on and it was connected to this, this, and this? Well, we get a little technobabble explanation, but we don't need to sink time into it. They're already looking into something. Let's just go. I like that. It hits the ground running, and I, especially during this era, would have kind of appreciated a few more episodes to start that way. I suppose I'll talk a little bit about the environmental messaging, especially in compared to Orphan 55, because here's what's interesting. The point at which the environmental message being a very big part, like environmental degradation being a key part of everything that's going wrong, gets introduced at almost the exact same point in each story, about two-thirds in. About two-thirds into Orphan 55, we find out this used to be Earth. And about two-thirds of the way into Praxeus, we find out this is latching onto microplastics, which are in all of our bodies. And it happens at about the same point. But for starters, there is a better buildup to the fact that we're trying to figure out what's going wrong. You know, initially with the birds, and then we see people, and like, okay, I'm just going to take a minute to do this. The plasticky thing, like creeping up and then taking it over, and like you can actually see it like go in the mouth a little. Like it's not like an amazing effect, but it like legitimately creeps me out. I kind of hate it, but it means it's effective. But, we get that. So obviously something is wrong. Then we find out, oh, it's the microplastics. Orphan 55 was not built prior to this around the mystery of what is this planet really. So suddenly they provide us an answer that's, leads us to the environmental message, but it's an answer to a question nobody was asking. Not really. Whereas here, Praxeus introduces the environmental aspect, the real world environmental aspect, the fact that the planet and every living thing in it is loaded up with freaking microplastics at this point, and it's our fault. It brings that in as the answer to a question that was already in the air, not to mention that right off the bat with the travel vloggers, it introduces the idea of pollution and all this garbage everywhere and trashing the planet is introduced right off the bat. So it sets the stage that environmentalism is at least something that's going on, environmental impact and that having that message. It then tells its story with its questions, what's going on, and then circles back to it going, environmentalism, pollution, all this plastic, this is the problem. So like it just integrates it into the story as opposed to 2/3 of the way through going, this was really Earth. Orphan 55 didn't do the work at the front end. That's a big part of it. But okay, but that's like a comparative thing. But I do think it's a comparison worth making, considering they exist not only within the same show, but within the same series, a couple of episodes apart. So I feel like that's worth doing anyways. The actual full answer that there's like an alien pathogen that is latching onto the plastic, I kind of shrug that and go, fine. What are the alternatives? That the plastic is somehow like something we did is going to mutate the plastic, that turns the threat almost silly. I actually think it's decently well balanced because like it establishes here's something that's really a problem, microplastics, and here is a fantastical thing that makes it worse, but like that base problem, still a problem. I also appreciate that there's an acknowledgement of the autons and the doctor discards it, because otherwise the lingering question would have been, how can you do a story with plastics and not include the autons?
Autons? No, it can't be autons. They don't work like this. Not bacterial.
Like it's a very, offhanded, not a deep explanation as to why it can't be them, but it's enough. I'm glad it's in there. And this episode almost does a better job at giving weight to the deaths of some of these characters. I think the best one is Jamila, who is the one of the two travel vloggers who dies. And, you can see them trying to help her. You can see that death really hit the surviving vlogger. Except, unfortunately, there's the one research scientist who gets taken out by the crows. I don't think he ever really gets acknowledged as having been killed. And then at the very end, the other travel vlogger is like,
I'll come with you.
How's that honeymoon if you're with us?
We can vlog about it.
your partner in that just died. Like, what? So like the episode knows enough that it has to at least take some time with one of these, but then falls back into the Chibnall. Well, it's not exclusive to Chibnall, but it's been bugging me more in Chibnall. The Chibnall era problem of just being real casual, real callous with the deaths of characters, which, spoiler alert, is going to be a much bigger issue in 2 episodes' time, but we're not there yet. We'll get there. As far as what else is going on, there's some good moments for Yaz in this. You're getting this sense that like she's really starting to really throw herself into this life and this existence with the Doctor. She's willing to, activate a teleport, not knowing where it's going to send her. She wants to, turn back on her own and get something that they left behind, and she just kind of assumes she'll be okay. She's getting a little bit reckless. Now, this isn't exactly a brand new thing for a companion to do. Clara got reckless as part of why what happened to her in Face the Raven is what happened. Both the Doctor and Rose kind of got reckless. That's part of the arc of their story that resulted in Rose being trapped in a parallel world and whatnot. So it's not the freshest thing in the world, but like it's still a story that I think has some good dramatic meat on its bones. So I don't have a problem with sort of introducing those elements to Yaz. I wish more got done with them later, but like they're solid here. Oh, and the other thing is, I feel like another pleasant consequence of sort of starting the story and skipping over the, establishing how the doctor got on to investigating this, telling the companions what they're doing, then skipping all that. By skipping that and starting with the all the people who are already on Earth, we actually get to know them a little bit better. I felt like the cop especially, I think, got more time, and I understood him significantly better as a character than we've usually gotten with a lot of the guest character appearances. And you get a sense of this self-loathing with him. They have enough time for him to have this talk with Graham that I think actually works fairly well to develop him.
If he's that amazing, which he is, he can't love me the way he says he does. It doesn't make sense. Why would he?
I think that's a big part of why I like this episode starting the way it does, and so that it's not losing time establishing the patently obvious. Somehow the doctor found something to investigate and started investigating it. Like, yeah, we'll take that for granted, and let's allocate the time to actually developing some of these other characters at least a little bit. And they're not amazing characters, they're not astounding performances, but they've got a little more depth to them than we sometimes get, and I think that's worth acknowledging. Oh, there's a tiny little moment with Yaz that I really liked, where she's like genuinely very annoyed that when she used the teleporter, that it sent her to this thing at the bottom of the Indian Ocean, because she thought maybe it sent her to another planet. She was genuinely irritated that she didn't discover a new planet.
What are you looking like that for?
Thought I discovered an alien planet on my own.
Again, like just some little moments with her that play well. The villain twist is, I mean, it's functional. It's not great. It's not terrible. It doesn't undermine anything. And I had actually completely forgotten that it happened. So, when Suki reveals herself as actually being an alien who had infected Earth with Praxeus so she could study it better and try and figure out how to counteract it because it had infected her home world, like, that's a solid enough explanation as to why she's here and what she's doing. Just, it just it just didn't stick too much with me, especially because it does very little to impact what it is they need to do and the ultimate resolution, because regardless of whether Suki betrayed them or not, it's not like she's working with the Praxeus infection. She's trying to stop it too. She's just, she just doesn't care about how many humans or whether the entire planet goes down while she does it. So, like, her methods are bad, but her goals are exactly the same. So she becomes like a little bit of a complication, but honestly, you could largely remove her and the story is not particularly affected because, well, they still have to fix the problem they always had to fix, regardless of whether she betrayed them, which I think is probably why I forgot it happened. But there's like a little tossed off line where the doctor's sort of berating herself for not catching on to Suki earlier. She's like,
Oh, I'm a sucker for a scientist.
Which I kind of like, because it is an acknowledgement that, she gets, and she's not the only version of the doctor to do this, but gets very excited by like the science stuff, like, oh, you're looking into this and investigating that, and ooh, and sort of puts the blinders on a little bit and doesn't notice maybe some other stuff that she should have noticed. And it's a tossed off line that acknowledges that. And yeah, I like it. I'm largely being positive on this, but don't get me wrong. It's not incredible. It's not. It's mid, but it's not mid because everything is white noise. It's mid because the core of it is just, it's fine. And there are little glimmers of something better, but they're not core enough elements, and they're not consistent enough to pull the whole thing up to another level. But it's fine. It is a perfectly fine episode. And it has little glimpses, little glimmers of little things or little bits about the structure that I'm like, yeah, that's a good way to do that. Yeah, okay. That's kind of all I've got. This might end up being the shortest episode review that I've got in this series, because there just isn't that much to say. It's fine. Huzzah! Praxeus, you rewatched it lately? What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon is what pays the bills around here and enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't support me there, though there are rewards at every tier, but even if you can't, there's links to other stuff I do in the description. The like, share, subscribe also do help me out, but even if you can't do that, what I really want you to remember is that you are beautiful, you're valid, you are loved. You are the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. Well, it's Patreon supporter shout-out time, folks. So thank you to Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfulla, Tarak, The Thing That Goes Doink in the Anime, Oliver B., Angus Bjarnason, Melinda Walters, Emu Delkey, Leotha Boyd, Toy Lowly, Becky Spark, Fernabilax the Poodle, Zach, Tracy Scrabbit, General Contact Unit Problem Child, Angry Casperl, Tim Price, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, Shayla Gourlay, and Brendan LaRose. Thanks so much for your help. You can get your name read out too. Check out the rewards in the Patreon. Is that what they should do? Should they check the Patreon?